If you've ever searched for best e-commerce business model, you've probably seen the exact same list. Dropshipping, Amazon FBA, print on demand, maybe even selling wholesale. But most of those guides are outdated, and today, some of those models are way riskier than before. So in this video, I'm going to walk you through 8 e-commerce business models. What's actually working right now, what's changed, and what I no longer recommend based on real-world results from my own business and talking with hundreds of my colleagues. Now, before we get into the breakdown, here's the one thing you need to understand. Every e-commerce model comes with trade-offs. Some are easy to start, but fragile. Others are harder upfront, but give you more control and profit down the line. Now, most beginners get burned not because they picked a bad model, but because they didn't fully understand what they were getting into. That's why I'm not just going to explain how each model works. For every business type, I'm going to give you a straightforward rating from 1 to 10 based on how easy it is to launch, how fast you can start making money, how sustainable the business model is over time, and how competitive it is today. And by the end, you'll know exactly which path makes sense for your personality, your budget, and your risk tolerance. Let's start with the model that's been hyped the hardest over the years, which is dropshipping on your own website. Now, the pitch sounds amazing. No inventory, no warehouse, no need to ship anything yourself. You just build a store, list your products, and forward the orders to your supplier when a customer buys, and that part is true. It's one of the easiest businesses to launch. You don't need much money, you don't need technical skills, and platforms like Shopify make it super easy. You can literally have a store live with products to sell in a weekend. But here's where most people get tripped up. Because someone else is handling inventory and fulfillment, your margins are paper thin. You're making 10 to 30% at best, which means running profitable ads becomes nearly impossible unless your conversion rate is perfect. And that's not even the hard part. If your supplier ships late, sends the wrong product, or suddenly goes out of stock, you're the one on the hook. You don't control the customer experience, but you do take the blame. Now sure, tools like Spocket, Syncy, or de-essers promise to make it hands-off. You click a couple of links to import products, orders get fulfilled automatically, everything syncs with Shopify, and it sounds like a dream. But here's the reality. First, you have no relationship with the actual supplier, and you're completely dependent on a third-party platform. Second, hundreds, if not thousands of other sellers are pushing the exact same products, which turns everything into a race to the bottom on price. And third, most of these goods are coming from China, where Trump just removed the de minimis exemption and imposed heavy tariffs. The truth is, this model looks great from a distance until you're knee-deep in customer service emails you can't control and you don't make enough profit to make it worth your time. So here's how I rate dropshipping with your own site. Ease of launch, I give it an 8 out of 10. It's quick, cheap, and simple to set up. Profit velocity, I give it a 3. You might get sales, but you won't make much profit. For sustainability and risk, I give it a 6. It can work, but it's fragile and one supplier screw-up can ruin your brand. And for competition, I give it a 3. You're selling the same products as everyone else with worse margins and less control. Dropshipping can still work if you're targeting a very niche market and if you're great at organic traffic, but for most people, this model's biggest strength, how easy it is to start, is also its biggest weakness. Let's move on to a model that's even easier to get going, but comes with some serious fine print. And it's called print on demand, and here's how it works. You create your own custom designs for things like t-shirts, mugs, tote bags, or hoodies. You list those products on your own website or on a marketplace like Etsy. And when someone places an order, your print-on-demand partner prints and ships the product directly to your customer. You never touch inventory. And on the surface, this model looks great. There's no upfront cost, no fulfillment to worry about, and everything is handled behind the scenes. And thanks to AI, you can now churn out a ton of designs in just a matter of minutes. Now, to be fair, this model can work, especially if you're creative, already have an audience, or know how to spot trends before they pop. But here's the part most people overlook. The margins are tight, painfully tight. For example, this standard Bella Canvas t-shirt will cost you $16.49 to have printed. Then, it costs you another $5 to have it shipped to your customer. In order to make a measly $5 of profit, you have to charge $26.50 for a single t-shirt. Now, I don't know about you, but I've never paid this much for a t-shirt ever unless I bought it at a concert. But the bigger issue is piracy. If you create a design that hits, someone's going to copy it, probably within days. It is common for competitors to steal artwork listed at a lower price and ride your traffic. And because most platforms are slow to act on takedown requests, your best protection is speed. You have to constantly churn out new designs just to stay ahead. Now that's fine if you love the niche and you're obsessed with your brand, but if you're relying on generic slogans or trendy clip art, you're going to burn out fast. Now again, people do succeed with this model, but here's the difference. The ones who win build a community first. They don't just sell products. They create something meaningful for a specific group of people who want to express themselves. That's when print on demand stops being a product and starts becoming a brand. So here's how I rate this business model. Ease of launch, I give it a 9 out of 10. You don't need inventory, coding skills, or a big budget to get started. Profit velocity is a 3. You can make quick sales if you tap into the right niche, but you're not going to make much money. Sustainability and risk comes in at a 4. You're not handling fulfillment, but you are on the hook for every problem that comes up, including people copying everything that you do. For competition, I give it a 3. It is crowded and noisy, unless you bring something specific and compelling to the table. By the way, if you're interested in learning how to start a profitable online store the right way, make sure you sign up for my free 6-day e-commerce mini course below. It's 100% free, and I guarantee you'll learn a lot. Now, so far, we've looked at business models that are easy to launch but tough to scale. And the biggest challenge with all of them is traffic. You're on the hook for everything: ads, SEO, building an audience, and that's no small task when you're just starting out. And that is exactly why Amazon dropshipping looks so tempting. You skip the marketing completely and tap into Amazon's built-in customer base. The traffic is already there. You just list a product, a customer places an order, and your supplier ships it for you. You never touch the inventory, and you keep the profit in between. At least that's how it's supposed to work. But here's the problem. Amazon holds sellers to extremely high standards. If your supplier ships late, runs out of stock, or sends the wrong item, it doesn't matter if it wasn't your fault. Amazon still holds you accountable. And if mistakes happen enough times, your Amazon account will get suspended. I've seen it firsthand. My friend John Rampton was doing millions in revenue dropshipping organizers on Amazon, but one holiday season, his supplier glitched and ran out of stock, and John had to cancel a bunch of orders. Amazon flagged his account and shut him down permanently. And just like that, his entire business was gone. Even if you avoid suspension, the margins are still razor thin. Anyone can list the exact same product from the same supplier, and there's nothing stopping them from undercutting you in price and taking your sales. You are in a race to the bottom with no real control. And Amazon's rules for dropshipping are really strict. The product has to ship from a legit wholesaler, not from a marketplace. You are not allowed to dropship from Walmart, Temu, or eBay. And sellers who ignore this rule will get banned. So overall, Amazon dropshipping is easy to start, and the profit potential can look attractive on paper, but the model is extremely fragile because your entire business depends on someone else. And Amazon has shown time and time again that they'll shut you down without warning if the customer experience is at risk. Here's how I rate Amazon dropshipping. Ease of launch, I give it an 8. It is quick to list products, and Amazon brings the traffic. Profit velocity is a 5. Sales can come in fast, but the margins are tight and the competition is fierce. Sustainability and risk, I give it a 1. You don't control the inventory, and one mistake can get your account permanently shut down. In competition, I give it a 3. You're selling the exact same product as everyone else with little room to differentiate or raise prices. So overall, Amazon dropshipping might be easy to launch, but it's a house of cards. One supplier mistake and your business dies. But what if you could skip the suppliers entirely and just flip products that are already sitting on store shelves? That is the promise of this next business model, which is called retail arbitrage. Now on paper, retail arbitrage sounds like the perfect hustle. You walk into a Marshall's or a Walmart, find a product on clearance, and then flip it for a profit on Amazon. And yes, it works. In fact, I've had podcast guests who've built 6-figure businesses doing exactly this. You don't need a website, you don't need a supplier. All you need is a smartphone, a seller account, and the time to go bargain hunting. Margins can also be great. You can buy something for $10 and sell it for $40. And if you move fast, you can start making money almost immediately. I've even done it myself. One year during the holidays, PlayStations were sold out everywhere. But I found a store with 20 units in stock, bought them all, and sold every single one at a hefty profit on eBay. I had a lot of fun doing it too. But here's the problem. You're spending most of your time chasing inventory. The business doesn't run unless you're outsourcing products, scanning barcodes, and jumping on limited time deals. And that means no systems, no predictability, and very little room to scale unless you hire a team. And then there's Amazon. Over the last couple years, Amazon has quietly made it harder and riskier to sell branded products through arbitrage. Some brands require approval or charge thousands in ungating fees. Others flat out ban resellers. So you might score a huge haul of clearance Legos only to find out that Amazon won't let you list them. And now you're stuck holding inventory you can't move. I've seen sellers lose thousands of dollars this way. So while the cash flow can look good on paper, the risk and the grind make it hard to build anything sustainable. Here's how I rate retail arbitrage. Ease of launch is an 8. If you can shop and scan barcodes, you can get started. Profit velocity is a 5. You can make money quickly, but it's not consistent and you're always starting over. Sustainability and risk come in at a 2. Amazon's rules can change at any time, and one bad buy can wipe out your profits. And for competition, I give it a 5. Other resellers are looking for the exact same products in the exact same places, so there's constant pressure on price. Retail arbitrage is fast and scrappy, but it's also unpredictable. You're constantly hunting for inventory, fighting price wars, and living at the mercy of store clearance racks. But what if you want more stability? A real business with repeatable systems and not just a hustle. That's where buying wholesale comes in. This is what most people think of when they picture a real e-commerce business. You buy inventory in bulk from a domestic supplier, store it yourself or at a 3PL, and then sell it on your own website. Margins are usually around 50%. The startup costs are relatively low compared to private label, and you can get access to a wide range of products right away. You don't have to make anything yourself, and if your supplier is reliable, the process runs smoothly. You also own the customer relationship, and that's a big deal. You control the brand experience, you own your email list, and no one can shut down your account because of a policy change. But this model isn't without its own challenges, and the biggest one is competition. You're not the only one selling these products. There are other stores selling the exact same items, sometimes at lower prices. And if any of them are on Amazon, it becomes almost impossible to match them without killing your margins. That's why differentiation matters. If you don't stand out through branding, content, or the customer experience, your site just becomes another generic store with a familiar product. Now, I've seen this model work extremely well when sellers go deep into a specific niche or add real value. For example, I have a friend who sells barbecue pits. He buys wholesale, but what sets him apart is the customer experience. He offers advice, support, and installation services throughout the entire process. I have another buddy who sells vacuum cleaners online. People buy from him because he's known as the vacuum guy, the authority in his niche. But if all you do is upload a generic catalog and hope people find you, it's going to be a slow grind. Here's how I rate traditional wholesale on your own site. Ease of launch is a 5. You need to find suppliers, place orders, and set up a site. Not hard, but not instant either. Profit velocity is a 5. Margins are decent, but you'll probably need to invest in ads or content before seeing any revenue. Sustainability and risk get a 6. You're in control, but you're still relying on someone else's product and you're exposed to price wars. In competition, I give it a 5. Other stores are selling the exact same thing and you'll need a real angle to stand out. Traditional wholesale gives you better margins and control, but there's one big catch. You have to drive your own traffic. And that's exactly why many sellers turn to Amazon wholesale instead. With Amazon, you don't need to worry about paid ads or content. Amazon brings the traffic and you get to focus on sourcing logistics. Here's how Amazon wholesale works. You buy brand name products in bulk from authorized distributors, send them to Amazon's warehouses, and then sell them through FBA. There's no need for a website. You don't handle fulfillment. Amazon takes care of everything. And it's very similar to retail arbitrage, but much more stable. You're not relying on random clearance racks. You're working with legitimate suppliers who carry consistent inventory, and because you're buying in bulk, you can often get better pricing. The margins are decent too at around 40 to 50%, and the minimum order quantities are often pretty low as well. You can literally get started with just a couple $100s in inventory. But just like every other model we've discussed, wholesale on Amazon has its downsides, and the biggest one is saturation. Most wholesale suppliers won't give you exclusive access to their products. And if a product is profitable, other sellers are going to find it. You might start off making solid margins, but as more people list the exact same item, prices drop, you won't get the buy box, and your profits will erode. I've seen sellers load up on a product that looked great in Jungle Scout or Helium 10, only to find out a month later that the listing has 5 new sellers all racing to the bottom. Another issue is supplier fatigue. More and more people are trying to open wholesale accounts, and distributors have started tightening access. Most don't even want to work with Amazon sellers at all, and others will require you to show a track record, an actual physical storefront, or some kind of value add before they let you in. So while the Amazon wholesale model is scalable and relatively low maintenance, it's also becoming way competitive, and the window to grab easy wins is getting smaller. Here's how I rate Amazon wholesale. Ease of launch, I give it a 7. Once you have a supplier and an Amazon account, it's pretty straightforward. Profit velocity, I give it a 7. With the right product, sales can come in fast through FBA. Sustainability and risk, I give it a 3. You don't own the product or the customer, and saturation can crush your margins at any time. And for competition, I give it a 3. As soon as a product looks profitable, other sellers jump in and pricing pressure kicks in fast. Now let's talk about a model I recommend most often now because it gives you control, pricing power, and long-term stability, and it's called private label. Now there are 2 popular ways to sell private label products, on Amazon and on your own online store. Let's start with Amazon first. With private label, you're not reselling someone else's brand. You're creating your own. You work with a manufacturer, usually overseas, to produce a unique product under your own label. You customize the packaging, control the branding, and create your own listing on Amazon. And when it works well. You get access to Amazon's massive traffic, but you're not stuck competing on the same listing as everyone else like you are with wholesale or dropshipping. The margins are higher, with gross margins over 66%. And because you control the product, you can shape the offer however you want. But selling private label products on Amazon also comes with a very real cost. And over the years, Amazon has quietly made this model harder to scale. Fees have increased, storage costs have gone up, referral fees chip away your margins, and the list of rules and restrictions just keeps getting longer. According to Marketplace Pulse, Amazon's fees now take up between 50 and 60% of a seller's revenue, which is a major hit to profitability. You're also competing directly with Amazon in some cases. If your product category is profitable and trending, it is not uncommon for Amazon to launch its own version, and when they do, they get placement advantages that you can't compete with. But the biggest risk of all is you don't own the customer. You don't get email addresses, you don't control the platform, you can't stop Amazon from suppressing your listing or pulling your reviews. One flag, one algorithm change, and your entire sales channel can disappear overnight. So yes, you get access to a massive marketplace, but you're building on rented land, and you pay for it every step of the way. Here's how I rate private label on Amazon. Ease of launch, I give it a 6. You need a supplier, some capital, and a well-optimized listing. Profit velocity, I give it a 10. If your profit gains traction, the margins and scale potential are hard to beat. For sustainability and risk, I give it a 7. You own the product and the brand, but Amazon still controls everything else. And for competition, I give it an 8. With good positioning, you can stand out, but you're still vulnerable to policy shifts and fee changes. Private label on Amazon gives you great margins and access to built-in traffic, but you're still playing by someone else's rules. That is why the next evolution for a lot of sellers, and what I recommend if you're thinking long-term, is to take that same product and sell it on your own website. And this changes the game completely. Now you're not just building a product, you're building a brand. You control the platform, the pricing, the messaging, and the entire customer experience. And you don't have to worry about sudden fee increases or policy changes wiping out your margins. You also don't have to ask for permission to collect emails, launch a promotion, or follow up with customers. Now, launching your own website is going to be harder in the beginning. You have to drive your own traffic, and that might mean running paid ads, writing content, showing up on social, or building an email list from scratch. And there's no marketplace sending you buyers on day one. But what you get in exchange is freedom. You can build a repeat customer base. You can increase lifetime value. You can test offers, optimize your conversion rate, and actually own your own data. Now in our business, over 36% of our revenue comes from repeat buyers. And that's nearly impossible to do if you're only selling on Amazon. When you build your own site, you're not just selling a product, you're building an asset. A brand with its own traffic, customer base, and marketing channels is far more valuable than one that depends entirely on a marketplace to survive. But it's not all upside. You still need to manage inventory. You're responsible for customer service, and if your store doesn't convert or if your ads aren't profitable, it's on you to fix it. But if you're willing to put in the work, this is the most defensible e-commerce business model out there. You're not building your business on someone else's land. You're building on something you actually own. Here's how I rate selling private label on your own website. Ease of launch, I give it a 4. You need a product, a store, and a plan to generate traffic. Profit velocity is a 7. It takes time to build momentum, but margins and repeat revenue can scale quickly. Sustainability and risk is a 10. You own everything, the product, the customer, and the platform. And competition is a 9. With full control over positioning and traffic, it is much easier to stand out. Now that you've seen how all the e-commerce business models compare, it is worth saying that you don't have to pick just one. I run my own store, but I also sell on Amazon. I focus on private label, but I've dropshipped and carried wholesale too. Plenty of sellers mix models depending on their goals, and that's perfectly fine. But if you're going to put in the work, you may as well build something that lasts. And for that, private label is what I recommend most, especially when you sell on both Amazon and on your own site. Because remember, the more effort you invest, the harder it is for anyone else to replicate. And that's what gives your business real staying power. Now that you understand the different models, make sure you watch this video here on exactly what I would do today if I were to start from complete scratch.